Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Professor Greg Dooley and the pundit Steve Clark. Men, take the mic.
Paul stays in Ann Arbor, and he's looking to own instead of rent. It's the Professor and the Pundit with Greg Dooley and Steve Clark, and we're proudly presented by Nick Hopwood, who's a certified financial planner, founder, and president of Peak Wealth Management. Retire with peak confidence. I want you to visit Nick's website if you have any questions at all about finances and what to do in this bull market come the end of 2025. Go to peakwm.com.
And if you're a listener to this show, we got a bunch of new listeners. Follow, rate, tell your friends. And most of all, Steve, we got to talk about the game. And no, we're not going to hang this one in the Louvre, the game that is.
Although I hear they need inventory.
Yeah, they do need. I don't think this would qualify, maybe. French people are kind of weird. But at least we're hanging on to Paul. And I personally am hanging on to my little Paul Bunyan Trophy, but I haven't exchanged in 4 years, with my big brother. That's yes. Ron. So I'm hanging on to it again this year. It's safely, actually a little dusty in my office.
Some people don't know you have a Spartan brother.
I do. And a wife. Lots of family. We're always respectful to each other. We don't do the hazing of each other and stuff like that. That's for friend groups and friend groups.
Right.
That's where it gets in. Yeah.
For an ugly game, there is a ton to talk about. Usually we kind of wrap up these segments about the game in about 8 or 9 minutes. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this a lot longer today. Plus, we're going to look at inside the new 24-team playoff proposal and when Michigan was involved in a sports gambling controversy several decades ago. Plus, our usual look around the Big Ten and nationally. But first of all, Michigan State loses to Michigan 31-20. For the Wolverines, it was 4 rushing touchdowns, 2 by Justice Haynes, who came back from his abdominal injury, 56-yard touchdown run by Jordan Marshall, and Bryce Underwood had a 13-yard run from a key block by Max Bredesen. What did you see, Greg?
I saw several chances for Michigan to deliver a knockout blow, including a metaphorical first round. After, I believe, 4 straight 3-and-out, Steve, you can help me, Mr. Pundit, by Michigan State, only mustering 10 points. Felt like we had several chances just to put this game away and couldn't. And then in the second quarter, you saw the tide swing, their fans getting it, the students taking off the shirts and winging them around. Aiden Childs looks like a new man. He looked scared in the beginning. In the second quarter, he looked like this is going to happen. He's firing up the sideline. Their defensive coordinators out in the field going nuts. I'm getting texts from the pundit himself saying this is ugly. And they score on the little brotherly shove, which I'm calling it that.
Sure. Why not?
And it looks like the game is in doubt heading into the locker room.
This game was a slugfest. Surprisingly, each team couldn't take advantage of the biggest strengths for each team for much of the game. So Michigan, they weren't winning the line of scrimmage the way that I thought that they would. Michigan State's worst parts of its team is the line of scrimmage on both sides, and Michigan did not dominate. In fact, Michigan State was fired up. I kind of equate line play to like rebounding in basketball. It's a lot about heart and desire. Michigan State, this is their Alamo, this is their Super Bowl, and they kind of showed that. And Michigan State's defense under Dro Rossi thought the game plan was working. The blitzes that he was using were timely. Michigan wasn't picking up on it. I thought he and the team did a tremendous job in the first half. But for the Spartans, on the other side of the argument, their strength was Aiden Childs, their quarterback, and Nick Marsh, their number 1 receiver. They were shut down for a long while. How were they shut down? Well, let me give you an example. There's 3:08 left in the third quarter. Okay, there's only 18 minutes remaining in the game. Childs at that point was 5 of 17 for 32 yards passing. Okay, Marsh at that same point in the game, 1 catch on 8 targets. Thrown the ball 8 times. He only catches the ball once, and it was for 8 yards. The final 18 minutes, though, both of those guys got into a rhythm. It bolstered their final numbers, but not before Michigan was up 24-7 in this game.
Yeah, and you felt like it was done at that point. There were a lot of penalties out there, Steve, most on Michigan State, a lot of frustrating ones for their fans. And then a few of those unsportsmanlike penalties that we expect to see in this game.
You had 2 personal fouls and 2 unsportsmanlike penalties from Michigan State, a total of 12 penalties for 105 yards. And whether it's a lack of discipline and or they tried to drag Michigan into the mud, it not only didn't work, but their penalties really cost them a chance to win because it seemed like it took away some of their biggest plays.
And if it's not, what's the future of Jonathan Smith? The questions that are out there on Twitter were about some of the calls, and there was a big one, Steve, on what it looked like a strip sack, where a guy obviously you've seen it all. He tried to time the snap, and on Zapruder film replay, it does look to me like he was onside. Refs aren't used to that, though. A guy trying to, rushing and trying to time the snap. It's tough. It's a tough call. I don't think a call or two caused this game to go one way or the other, unlike the Aiden Hutchinson strip sack, which is overturned. And again, ironically, you're listening to the 2 guys in the world who kind of understood why they called their quarterback down in that play. But it was a big play in the game. Obviously,
sure.
It would have made a difference. I don't think it would have made the difference.
It's what Michigan State writers have been talking about over the last 24 hours. So are their talking heads. Jonathan Smith himself said he's seen this type of thing called and not called, tried to downplay it. Honestly, if the teams were reversed, Michigan and their fans would be extremely mad about this whole thing. The ensuing touchdown was one of those big moments. It ended up resulting in Michigan scoring and padding onto their lead. Let's not pretend that the game was stolen from Michigan State in this one. The following 2 possessions Michigan State had after that went 8 plays, 16 yards. That's it. So it's not like they were going to necessarily, by law, meant that they were going to march by the field. And let's not hear future radio shows about Michigan always getting the calls when you just mentioned 2021. There's 2001 Spartan Bob. You just mentioned 1990 with the Desmond Howard trip, 1995 on a 4th down call that never got the first down. These things have happened on both sides. And, of course, there was a few pass interference calls that were whistled against Michigan State as well.
Yeah, we got to talk about Jair Hill because I think he's a bigger reason that Nick Marsh had a tough time. But there were some, again, when you slow it down, it did look like our defenders were there a little early. Again, it's got people fuming. This is one case where I think we were on the other side of some of those questionable calls where, yeah, you're right, Steve. Turn the tables. Had the game not gone our way, or if this were Ohio State and we were, say, the lesser team and who had a shot, we'd be going nuts about the refs. We would. Our fan base would, at least. I'd like to think we're more reasonable in these situations. We've proven it, I think, with the Aiden Hutchinson thing. We've demonstrated that to some extent. The other thing was, on our end, I did notice, especially early in the game, the Spartan defenders were clutching our receivers all the way down the field in a couple cases, which one of them they overturned because the ball was uncatchable, but they could have called holding on the way down the field. So there was other stuff going on. We always we always get painted in a corner a half to talk about the refs. To me, I agree with your summary, though it wouldn't have made a difference in the result of the game.
I think the officials were calling this a little looser than maybe other officials would. Michigan just abandoned the pass, though. If it's going to be like this, they're just not going to pass the ball. And, of course, that doesn't help Michigan State because that's what they needed to do was to pass the ball.
So on our side, you are left with some questions, and we'll get into that. I did wonder why we didn't do the Hail Mary with 1 snap, 3 seconds to go in the half. Granted, there's a couple things here. It's on a road. It's now you'd have to roll Bryce out, which could expose him to some hits. It's probably more likely than bad things could happen than good. So I kind of understand why Sharon went in the locker room. But, Steve, I don't think there's any question we could have got the ball down the field there. I mean, at all. So
I'm good with it. It was from their own 43-yard line. Michigan State's pass rush was getting through Michigan's offensive line to begin with.
That's what you'd have to worry about.
And then last week, I just happened to see Iowa attempt a 66-yard field goal because they had this let's go for it mentality only to get it blocked by Penn State. And they get a touchdown, and they take the lead. So
Look, this is a different game. It's different, and really weird things have happened. As we know, they happened in this game. So I kind of understand why. And speaking of, so they go into the locker room, presumably have a good talk. Sharon talked in the pregame about being disciplined and doing our jobs. There was clearly some things they needed to fix, but came out right away and had that statement touchdown to lead the third quarter. Was so huge and a relief, I think, to a lot of fans who at home probably threw the occasional remote control during halftime in frustration.
Justice Haynes with a big run right up the middle. Of course, it was that same possession where the offside call was called on the strip sack, but Michigan turned that around into a touchdown for them. I can't go this far into the broadcast, though, and not forget to mention Jimmy Rolder on defense.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Fumble recovery, 2 fourth down stops, a pass broken up on a 2-point conversion, a sack, and he led the team in tackles.
With double-digit tackles in this game. Like,
what a day.
And the jump on fourth, State hustles to the line to do their 4th and 1.
Right.
And they weren't quite set. We weren't quite set. And he just said, forget about it. I'm just going to jump over the line.
Do LeVar Arrington.
It was an amazing play. And that will be one that will be replayed, certainly for Michigan fans in this rivalry for a long time.
I like to see that years from now. I mean, there might be a few photos that could be highly bought if the photographers were in the right place with Childs as the victim. You had TJ Guy's sack where he just basically leapt on top of him because Childs kind of ducked, which made it look worse than it did, but he just basically fell on top of his back, whipped him around. There was a time where, hey, great for Aiden Childs. He decided to block down the field, and he got smashed, and he looked like a little starfish.
Yeah.
Once he got hit, he just got thrown back a number of yards in that one.
What else, Steve? Did you see anything else out there that really got you going?
You hinted at it earlier, Jair Hill. He had a great night covering Nick Marsh in the early going. I mentioned it already. 8 targets, 1 catch, 8 yards. He was on him most of the time, and he had him blanketing like he was putting out a fire.
No, he did. He had some great coverage. I don't blame it when DBs drop a pass, but he had one early on that could have been an interception, but either way, it was a breakup.
Second straight week.
Yeah. Yeah, and probably a pick 6, let's be honest. Played great. Rushing, they say it less now because the game has changed, but there was that stat where the team that rushes the ball the best in this series wins this, and obviously that was a huge advantage for Michigan in this one, and we really did well there.
The Wolverines rushed for 276, and Justice Haynes had 152. Jordan Marshall had 110 and over 7 yards per carry with the help of the 56-yard exclamation point TD.
Yeah, and credit to the coaches. There are critics out there. There's this, there's that. We should have done this. But they had to win this game. There was no pressure on Michigan State. Maybe a lot on Jonathan Smith personally for his job, but it would have been really ugly if they didn't get out of there with a win, even by a point. And I'm sure Sharon and the staff are taking their a bit today, but they really had the right mindset. We didn't react that much to what was going on. We didn't get a ton of the counter penalties for some of the other penalties that State got. You got to give them credit.
I do. I think there was pressure on Michigan State to win this game because not only for Jonathan Smith's case, but what is Michigan State playing for now at this point? If they had won the game, that they could feel a little bit better about themselves. They could see building pieces. Maybe they listen to their assistant coaches a little more. They see it's working. You think you can win at Minnesota because Minnesota, took a gas pipe in Iowa City earlier on Saturday afternoon. But now these games look tough. Winning in the cold November in Minneapolis, you're playing Penn State, you got Maryland, and there's, I know you got to go to Kinnick too. You're looking at a potential 0-9 team, and even if they're 1-8, it's the fact that if you're a good player at Michigan State, they're getting phone calls.
Yeah.
They're getting phone calls,
true.
And you're barely going to be able to keep a roster together, whether you keep the head coach or you don't.
There is that personal pressure, as you pointed out, because they have to know that the likelihood if they keep losing is gonna change their lives, right? Because even a new coach who comes in, who's to say a lot of those players are going to fit on that coach's roster? Who knows? Because we've talked about in here, guys are going to bring a bunch of new players in, so there is pressure on them. I just think for Sharon and the staff, we just had to have this one. We're kind of in that realm now. We have to have the next few. Other concerns, man. We got to start with Bryce. I think he had some games where he was getting better. I'm not sure it happened in this one.
No, I don't necessarily think it was a step up. No touchdowns thrown in this game. The passing game kind of went away. the offense in general wasn't handling the blitz very well. There were misassignments there. Michigan punted 6 times in the game, had 4 3-and-outs. And the offenses weren't really moving a whole lot, as evident to me in the first quarter when each team had the ball 4 times. I mean, I've seen it when the offense is moving that one team may see the ball twice and the other team sees the ball once, and then the first quarter is over. But each team had the ball 4 times in the first quarter. I think there were 13 drives overall in the game. A lot of times it's 9, 10, but it ended up being 13. So Michigan did have a number of punts. They certainly had a number of 3-and-outs in this one.
Yeah, and we did punt better, which we didn't mention in some of our positives, Steve. So props to Hudson Hollenbeck for doing that. I wouldn't say it was an A-plus game, but he had some nice ones and got some good bounces. But as far as Bryce, clearly they weren't able to give him enough time. But I'm not sure about the scheme. It just seemed like, where were the tight ends? I mean, I think there was 1 target to Marlon Klein,
correct,
if that. That seems like the type of game where you would want to get the tight ends who had such a great game the week before, get them involved. It seemed like we had a lot of passes that were just slung out to the boundary for the receivers who were generally covered. It really looked like the passing game regressed, and to the chagrin of a lot of people on social media, like, oh my God, we're 1 step back in the last year where we can't pass the ball. Now,
so I'm not smart enough to grade offensive linemen on the fly. But Evan Link, the left tackle, was out. Blake Frazier was playing in his stead. Michigan State, Joe Rossi was saying, look, begging the secondary to cover for 2 seconds. That's all he was probably asking, because the other 7 guys were attacking. And the rest of you in single coverage, you just need to cover for 2 seconds. And the thing is, Michigan never really got a deep ball off. Donovan McCauley was, I wouldn't say he was a no-show. There just wasn't many attempts thrown his way. I was really anxious about the Andrew versus Nick Marsh setup, and for a while it looked like Michigan's Marsh was winning, but it ended up not being that way.
We've got some really talented guys on offense, and it doesn't feel like we're getting the ball to them. Granted, he didn't have a lot of time. We had some injuries. Cole Sullivan was down on a knee for a while.
That bothers me because he was seen wearing a sling around his shoulder, and no one is saying what that means on a Sunday right now, but I am mentally preparing myself to think that he may not be playing the rest of the year.
Here's the problem. The trainer was holding that arm, though, when he was walking off. Something's wrong. So that's not a good sign. Yeah. He wasn't holding him up. He was holding the arm. And let's hope it's not a break or something like that. Steve, Marlon Klein made a miraculous recovery, after we declared him out for the season.
Well, yes, so that's probably a mistake on my part. The injury report showed him out for the game, but was not in the out for the season spot in the roster release that happens 2 hours before the game. So,
I'm glad because it's a captain, and it was glad to see him out there again. Let's get him back the ball.
Tony Kornheiser said errors and omissions. I think that is on me.
No problem. I mean, I trust you with these things, and mistakes can happen.
And now you can't.
Speaking of now we can't. Speaking of mistakes, Steve, this is the mistakes segment sponsored by Oscars. No, my man Samaj, he drops a pass. And some of the decisions on the punt, Steve, when he should let some go, when he should catch them, he caught one with like 45 seconds left, like he was going back and caught it on the 5-yard line, should have let it go. Then he caught another one, and maybe it's not his fault, but there was a Michigan guy right near him who collided with him.
She ain't a good one.
Thank goodness, my man held on to the ball. That. What a Spartan thing to happen is that. Like the guy's butt, the butt fumble from 2025.
I will give him credit for, despite all the things that are going on with him, that he held on to that thing, not expecting his own teammate to hit him immediately. I'm sure he got a pick-me-up text from Jake Thaw.
Yes, Jake, who's at Delaware. Marlon Klein lining up in the neutral zone. I happen to be listening to the radio broadcast during this play, Steve.
Okay.
And Karsh or Jansen are screaming, Klein's in the neutral zone. Klein's in the like the weirdest visual in my head. Like he's just lined up in the neutral zone. He's not moving. Snap, flag on a crucial play. a captain. I mean,
Right.
so
It makes me wonder, when you have the visitors radio broadcast, sometimes they're right next to the coach's booth. And there's a solid wall and plexiglass, but if you yell it loud enough, maybe an assistant in the next room without headsets is going,
yeah.
maybe
No,
my
but,
part,
but you bring up a point though. Like if Karsh and Jansen are just sitting there talking about it before the snap,
Yeah.
why didn't the coach see it or someone on the sideline and at least call a timeout? He clearly wasn't moving.
they were looking about calling the next play.
They needed to yell something in German to my man Marlon. So what else, Steve? We shut State a lot of things they did, but they had a couple players get loose, including the running back Frazier.
Yeah, I didn't like that. Mekhi Frazier, he had been really, I wouldn't say, no show is not nice and not accurate, but their offensive line has been bad. And Aiden Childs has basically been their number one back since conference play began. Mekhi Frazier got all his yards in non-conference, Boston College, Western Michigan, Youngstown State. And you look at the last 3 games, if you took all the Michigan State running backs combined, they totaled no more than 65 yards. 62 to Nebraska, 65 against UCLA, 17 against Indiana. Saturday night, they had 129 yards. So that's doubled their best output in a month. And they had a couple of good runs. Mekhi Frazier had one for 49, and I think he had another one for 25. Those are 2 big plays and had the bulk of them. But Michigan State wasn't getting any of that over the last 3 weeks. And so I was not happy about that progress report that all of a sudden Michigan State found its running game.
Yeah, on the bright side, that Frazier run, I was actually happy. It looked like a breakdown on the line, but I was real happy with the way guys pursued to get him because he could have been gone. Not happy about Justice Haynes fumbling late in the game. Now, he's been very reliable, been a great back. He had another great game. Someone, actually it was Jason Avant, suggested that he was almost surprised to go back in the game as if it was mop-up time or something like that. He said it. And, of course, Jansen jumps in and goes, hey, you can't be surprised. You got to be ready to play, So I don't know if there's any truth to that. The snap over Bryce's head, a fluke. But, oh, boy, shades of trouble with the snap.
Oh, gosh, I wish that would be retired. I don't think Sean McDonough likes Michigan. I just don't think he does. He has said some comments, especially against Lloyd Carr, that didn't need to be said. Maybe I'm just being super sensitive about this whole thing, but I could just tell that Sean McDonough just doesn't like it. And maybe I'm completely wrong on that. It is the 10th anniversary of that, so he was very happy to share it across the world.
That was brutal. Bryce did a nice job covering the ball, although it popped out just for a second when he got it. So good heads-up play, but brutal. And Steve, will put trouble in the snap in the rearview mirror for another 10 years. How does that sound? But we're nitpicking and we're saying these things in a huge victory. We got to be grateful about that. Yeah. I mean, the difference between winning and losing this game is huge. The narrative between winning and losing this game, how the refs and bitching about the refs will be treated, as we've talked about in the show, such a big difference. Such a big difference. And now we got potentially nearly 3 weeks, Steve, to kind of get ready. Why 3 weeks? We got Purdue next, right? And we got some winnable games in front of us. What do you see?
Northwestern is my biggest concern of the 3 between Northwestern, Maryland, and Purdue. Because Northwestern is winning the line of scrimmage when they're playing on first and second down. Now, I watched their game against Nebraska on Saturday, and Nebraska made enough winning plays to win, and they really showed me something on converting a long series of third downs to get the game-winning touchdown. But it seemed like Northwestern was winning first and second down quite a bit in this one. So that is my concern. That one will be a road game at Wrigley Field. Michigan, I think, needs to start opening up their passing game again. They got to take it from hardly being used to being a credible threat.
Yeah, and I say 3 weeks because we've got Purdue next, who we'll talk about. Then we got a bye week. Then we got that week before Wrigley. And there will be a lot of Michigan fans there at Wrigley, Steve, which is nice. And it's not a home game. Not that that was ever a threat for Northwestern. You're more worried about the team. But what's next for MSU? We talked a little bit about the rest of their schedule, which is tough. This game was weird. It had a weird vibe. Don't you agree? Like with D'Antonio, with Harbaugh, there was always something. Both coaches are less talky. There's fewer sound bites and things from that. But particularly Jonathan Smith seems more chill. Maybe it's his nature. He's even said things like that's a big regular season game.
He doesn't have the same fire that Michigan State coaches of the past. There is not the hatred for Michigan that he's been a part of growing up. He's an outsider coming into this whole thing, even in what Michigan State fans want to grasp upon, and their writers and talking heads will continue to grasp upon. The officials cost us the game mentality. Jonathan Smith's going, yeah, I've seen that call. I've seen that happen.
That's not helping.
No, it's not helping with the furor that Michigan State fans want to have. You want to talk about Mark D'Antonio always living with a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he should have been sponsored by Frito-Lay.
Right.
And Jonathan Smith doesn't want to have a chip on their shoulder. They just want to get out there and get through it. We've talked and seen the effect of what cross-country travel does to teams. Nobody's talked about the fact what it might do to coaches. Jonathan Smith might be on this West Coast coaching, coming to the East Coast and just kind of flat, just not the same, not quite there. When do I go back home? Back to the Pacific Coast.
I mean, there is a different vibe out there out west, clearly. I mean, you feel it. There's a different vibe in western Michigan, let alone the western part of the United States.
Dan Lanning is not chill, and he's out in Oregon.
That's true.
But Jonathan Smith is just not fiery, and part of Michigan State's personality is to be scrappy and be upset a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you could go back to Saban, but the best coaches in this rivalry and the Ohio State rivalry, they pointed at Michigan and said, "That's our team we got to beat," and they were unmistakable about it. He's never really done that.
He's had 2 games.
This is tough though, Steve, because if the current AD at Michigan State had hired him 2 years ago, I would think it's more likely that he would have some more time. But there's a new AD, and this isn't his guy,
right?
And Alan Haller hired him.
Yep.
And it's pretty miserable. They're in a little bit of a pinch here. Plus, you've got the strangest coaching season of firings with big coaching jobs available. Man, it's wild. The message boards at State must be wild. So I could see it. If I were making the decision, I don't know. But where do you think fans are coming from on this?
Well, I think I'm finally seeing their perspective a little bit. Michigan State's performances so far this year is exactly what I've expected them out of this year. If you asked me to pick a game by game in the summer about which ones they'd win and which ones they'd lose, I think I would be perfect on the season for them through 8 games. Now, I take that back. UCLA, I would have expected Michigan State to beat UCLA, which they should have won, but it was obviously their worst performance of the year. They shouldn't have beaten anyone else to the first 5 games in conference play. I did not expect Michigan State to go out to Nebraska and win in Lincoln. They lost. In fact, they even beat the point spread.
They had that Lincoln game. They had a dogfight with them for at least 3 quarters, I think it was.
I think that was one of those deals that probably made Michigan State fans more mad that they had the lead in the 3rd quarter and ended up losing. Michigan State is performing the way I expected them to, minus UCLA. So I'm not getting why everyone said the time is now or it's got to be done. A little bit of better understanding just watching this Michigan and Michigan State game that Spartan fans don't feel like they're seeing a lot of improvement. Aiden Childs is actually better this year. Maybe some fans are forgetting that, but in this game, he was miserable for the most part. The Spartans shot themselves in the foot a lot. They seem to go from good to bad quite a bit, from bad to good. It's kind of disjointed. There isn't much optimism going on. There isn't a whole lot of fuel in the fire.
Yeah, disjoint is an interesting word because they've had their moments, right? They've had their moments where their defenses look good. They've had their moments where they've started games and their offenses look good. It's an odd thing. But you're right. The net of it is probably what you expected their record to be.
Aiden Childs, at times, has looked like the best player on the football field. At times. And things can click, but it doesn't necessarily last very long. It doesn't necessarily even last through a half where all of a sudden the throws get off target, untimely penalties, big play given up. And, this is the thing, Greg. We're doing this podcast a little bit later than we usually do on a Sunday because the last 3 weeks we have been we have been burdened by the fact that a head coach got fired in the middle of the recording. So we had this one later So we're kind of assuming at this point there is no firings going on in East Lansing or in Madison, Wisconsin, or in Baton Rouge or things like that. But when it comes to making a firing now or a couple of weeks down the line or at the end of the season, where is the financial support from Michigan State? Where are the good players coming from? We know the buyout will be huge. It's like $30 million, but there's caveats about, Jonathan Smith would have to find a job, and what job he would find, Michigan State could, subtract the difference. I get all that. Where is the influx of money to pay the old coach and the new coach and to get players from other places?
That's the big thing, because the cost to bring in players is always higher than the cost to retain. And a new coach is going to bring a bunch of players with him or try. I don't know. With Penn State out there, if you fire Michigan State's coach, who's right in the middle of that? Ohio State and Michigan ready to pick off their rosters, or at least go through them. So yeah.
Right now they're about to get rated.
It's a tough situation.
All right, let's take a break and come right back.
It's good. Sometimes you get your little brother excited when you're playing basketball and stuff. You let him get the lead. And then you just come back and take it back.
Do you think of Michigan State as your little brother?
Yep.
Hey, it's Nick Hopwood, CFP at Peak Wealth Management. What's great about MSU Week for me is that my little brother went to Michigan State, which means he hates Mike Hart with a passion and calls all Michigan fans Walmart Wolverines. But you are not a Walmart Wolverine, and you are probably in great shape financially. But are you optimizing? How much time do you have to devote to managing your portfolio and your financial plan? How would you grade your results? Be honest. And how much time are you spending on these TPS reports anyway? It's time to outsource and partner with a pro the guy who rode the bus to Bursley. Visit peakwm.com/mgoblog today.
Did you say rivalry week? Rivalry week. Rivalry week. Rivalry week. Rivalry week. Rivalry week. Right way. Guys, it's rivalry week.
And once again, that is peakwm.com. Get a hold of Nick Hopwood, our title sponsor of The Professor and The Pundit. Greg, you've got some things that are going on. You're going to be speaking on to the U of M Club of Flint later this week.
Yeah, the Tuesday of Ohio State week. I'm going to be up there at Flint again. I love those guys. I just got booked from this is fancy, Steve. The Economic Club of Traverse City wants me to speak to them. There's some pretty fancy people who have spoken to this group. That's next year. I'll keep you posted on that. This week, I've got Dusty May scheduled to come in my leadership class.
Congratulations. This is the first time, right?
This is the first time. Again, I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that his schedule doesn't get crossed up and he can make it in. We're going to do a Q&A. It's going to be outstanding. Steve, a few sights and sounds. I got to listen to almost all 3 hours of the pregame show, but it looks like it went off the rails there a little bit, Steve. Am I wrong?
No, I couldn't. I lost it. I couldn't contain myself. Normally, when I'm breaking down an opponent, if you think I'm just saying these things off the top of my head, I used to be able to do that. I could literally write off 100 things that are off the top of my head and have the numbers exactly accurate where these people are from. I write them down now. And so there is somewhat a bit of a script when I'm talking about, the opponent preview. However, I deviated off the script when I just thought of this moment right before I was supposed to come on, the fact that during a Michigan State preview for the countdown to kickoff, where I spend hours on each opponent, the one team that it usually gets derailed on is Michigan State. That all of this information never really gets said. And I'm looking at Sam, and I look at Ira during the commercial break, and they're kind of calm, and I'm waiting for Sam. How is he going to destroy this segment this time on me? And I'm not mad about it, but I thought I'm going to bring this up, that this is usually a time.
Right. Can I just say it's usually because Sam is jumping in and going crazy in the tent or something like that, talking smack.
Right.
When you're right in the middle of trying to go through you're the straight man. Sam's going nuts on you. Okay.
So during that segment, I've had it preempted due to the governor coming into the tent, because Michigan State usually drives politics and politicians looking for votes, when the game's in Ann Arbor and it's a political year. Had the current governor, had somebody running for governor. It's like, Steve, we got to cut a segment. We got to cut out your opponent preview. Fine. And then one time we had strippers.
Are these the Deja Vu girls that were in there back in the day?
Correct.
Yes.
They were once a sponsor of the Countdown to Kickoff show, and occasionally they came in.
Yes, and I was in the tent that time, and some of those times it was kind of fun having them in there. I gotta say, they didn't care much about sports; they cared about other things.
Yes,
and with all his nerds in there.
So anyway, Sam's reaction, and you can tell his just mind is now going back, and Miz is playing his own verbal cues. And as I said, I kind of write these things down, and I notice that as I'm trying not to break up and laugh. I'm trying my hardest, and then I see in my notes, busted coverage. The word busted coverage was written out. This is the sentence I'm supposed to say next, that somebody's been exposed to a lot of busted coverage. But no, it's over. It's absolutely over. You hear my voice break on a number of occasions. It was not a good look for me. I finally broke down.
It was fun. It was a fun pregame show.
It does not happen often. So I'm not Jimmy Fallon, who tries to create a series where get everybody laughing and off the rails as a part of getting noticed, which is what Jimmy Fallon on Saturday Night Live did. He sabotaged sketches so that he could make the news by breaking up. This is not one of those occasions. I hope that it never happens again. But if it happens once, sometimes it's good radio.
You guys had a ton of fun. I got to say, you're talking about Sam. He was less, boisterous about this one.
He was upset about it.
Just like the Jonathan Smith kind of vibe. This one was just a lot different.
Nobody was giving Sam a hard time this week.
Yeah.
Nobody was crying afoul of this, or you're going to get your comeuppance for saying that. Nothing. It was just peaceful and quiet, like it was a normal game. And so, yes, Sam was certainly disappointed, because the one thing that Sam can do is Sam can retort. If somebody has a line for Sam, Sam can retort.
I would not cross Sam.
And it would be double or triple to whatever you think you're going to give him.
Yeah, do not get in the dozens or any kind of trouble with Sam. You're going to get in trouble. The Boilermakers are coming to town. Yep. Speaking of trouble.
Yep, still winless in Big Ten play, as is Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Penn State. The Boilermakers got 2 touchdowns against Rutgers when there wasn't a Scarlet Knight defender even in the same area code. But Rutgers tied it with a field goal with just over a minute left in regulation. And on the very next play, Purdue fans just kind of expect this now. Their quarterback, Ryan Brown, who is their best player, catches his own pass that was deflected. And as he starts to run, he gets hit from behind. Out comes the football. Rutgers comes up with it automatically inside field goal range. And that's exactly what they did as time expired. They kicked the game-winning field goal.
So he had a pass attempt.
Yes.
A reception.
Right. And a fumble.
And a fumble on the stat line in that play.
Correct.
And a lost fumble, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And when you look at when you look at Rutgers scoring, they say field goal with a little over a minute and field goal with 0-0. And you go, how did that happen? Well, that's exactly how it happened. And it's very Purdue-like. And their fans don't go ballistic. They just laugh at their team now.
Okay. Well, that's rough. So you wonder what the future of this whole thing is, Steve. Speaking of the future, we've had some talk this week. It's kind of swelled up about not only a 16-team playoff or an 18-team playoff. No. They've jumped right to 24, a 24-team playoff. It seems to have captured the headlines. I'm not surprised about all the groundswell, and I'm hearing from the big guys especially, they like the notion because this gives Tony Petitti, who's been going around about 4 guaranteed spots, an easy path to those 4 spots for the Big Ten. More revenue, more home games, more playing games, right, at homes. And then it could give this whole thing of these seeded games to get into the playoff that Tony Petitti wants, because now you have something new to sell, and you sell it under the notion of this Big Ten Enterprises, which we talked about last week. So, because that's not contemplated in any existing deal. This is new money, and that makes everybody happy. For the small conferences, guaranteed spots, which may make them happy, and the committee perhaps minimized because they're just making decisions in the back end, not on all those guaranteed spots. What are your thoughts, Steve?
I'm very torn on continuous expansion because you never contract. If you expand the playoff, it never, ever contracts. Of course, I spent 2 decades railing against having any type of playoff that would ruin the regular season. I will admit I'm going to be wrong on that. There is still a lot of interest. There still could be interest in the regular season with the 2014 playoff. But I got to tell you, some of these regular season games are going to feel like Lions exhibition games in August.
That would suck.
And
Yeah.
I think that's where it's going to come down to, because basically if you're ranked, you're in. And then I also look at, right now, if this was done as of last Saturday, you'd have 5 SEC at-large teams, and Notre Dame would be the 6th. And the Big Ten isn't benefiting at all with this expanded playoff, because many feel that 3 were going to get in. Maybe they get the benefit of 1 extra team coming in because it had a 4th automatic qualifier. I also stand on the other end, because I've said this for a couple of months now, is that a lot of these teams in an 18-team Big Ten conference, what are they playing for?
Yeah.
What are they playing for? Why are we spending these millions of dollars? How does a finishing 11th better than finishing 17th?
Maybe this is Petitti's answer. We've got more of these slots where you can be one of the Indianas that turns it around somehow and gets in.
So you want to talk about having 3 games being played, in the Big Ten Conference Championship weekend.
Yeah.
Where you're playing for 6. You're playing for 6 so that you have the right to play the 3rd seed for a chance of being one of those 4 automatic qualifiers.
Yeah.
Okay. But I feel like, once again, it's just one big thing that we're just delaying at the expense of the regular season for the greatest playoff. And right now you look at basketball, and it just seems like nobody's paying attention to basketball until February. Now, if you're a true fan of basketball, of course you really are paying attention to every single game if you are a fan. But I don't know if most people are like, wake me up when it's March Madness. They're waiting for the Super Bowl to be over and go, well, what should I follow now? And then they gravitate towards college basketball. I'd hate for that to turn to football, where it just seems like we're just trying to play 2 to 3 months of football in so that we can get towards where we need to be.
The argument is football is different. The NFL is different. If we look at that model, we love watching the NFL. We watch Thursday night games for teams we don't even have an affiliation with. But who knows, Steve? You're right. And you're right. If we expand, we will not go back. The one time that Michigan was involved with the contraction, that was when the Big Ten Conference agreed to reduce the number of games. In 1908, we left the conference because we didn't want to do that. So there you go. We took our ball and went independent for 10 years. So that's how it goes. What else, man? There's
go ahead. Let me add that
sure.
One of the reasons why we're bringing this up, because there is some sort of early December deadline about changing the playoff format for the 2026 season. If it's going to happen in time for 2026, they have to come to an agreement by early December. We're a little over a month away from that deadline. So I think there's going to be ideas that not only come up, but need to be talked about and hashed out and sort of, throw the stone in the pond and see how much, what kind of tidal wave it brings out there, because you're literally 5 weeks away from having to make a decision or living with the 12-team playoff, which I'm kind of happy with.
Okay. I'm guessing they will expand it because of the money situation. Sure. The same reason 16 teams were ready to sign off on this thing with the California Teachers Pension Fund. So we'll see. All right. Gambling's in the news. Our man, Mr. Big Shot, Chauncey Billups, was woken up early the other day. It was all the talk. It's wild, Steve. It's something that you like, which is poker, a game of poker.
I don't like a fixed poker game.
No, you do not. Did you see all the things they were doing? Does it make you wonder about some bad beats you've had on the poker table? But
I have heard about, when I have played poker at places, that especially when they're at smaller venues, not like the ones that are in Detroit, but it's smaller venues where it's more folksy and it's more the same regulars, that dealers sometimes tell the regulars something that they've noticed or what's going on, and there's communication. Sometimes you see dealers like doing more rakes higher than what's posted, and it turns people off. So I do get kind of turned off at the big established poker venues, but something says I should go there compared to the private poker parties that
Yeah.
Chauncey Billups wants you to attend.
Brutal. But it has brought, like, we're inundated with gambling ads. Now the NCAA is talking about allowing pro sports betting for college athletes, which previously was banned. Who knows? But I have a fun story from the 50s. Not fun if you were Michigan at the time, but actually in the 50s, there was a parlay card scheme or scam or whatever on campus. You know what a parlay card is? Before the age of digital, you used to pick a bunch of teams. You could pick 10, you could pick 20, and if a certain number of them hit, you got paid. Well, they actually printed the spreads on cards. They used to sell them out. I had these like in high school. These were like passed around early in college. But there was a big ring on campus, and the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover himself actually got involved, and the whole scheme was exposed by the Michigan Daily. And of course, the cool kids on campus were involved, namely Michigan's fullback on the football team, the captain of their basketball team, 5 other students.
Multi-sports at Michigan.
Yes, arrested. It was covered in the New York Times, Life, with the big Life magazine back in the day, Sports Illustrated. Everyone covered. The guy who wrote the story was hung in effigy on campus like he's a rat. Like he ratted out his fellow students about this. So what happened? The reason we're not talking about it, hey, we don't like to talk about stuff like this in Michigan because we're Michigan.
Right.
But number
Leaders
2.
and best.
No, absolutely. But eventually...
Another moniker, leaders and best, and nothing ever happened.
Right. Well, the other thing is everyone's doing it. That's another favorite of ours. And that's really why, in the end, this was going on at Ohio State, a bunch of other campuses. Students like to gamble. They like to gamble when I was in school. And the fact is that these guys got slaps on the wrists.
So was it gambling or was it a fixed game that they got people involved and these people profited over?
It was just big enough to get the attention of the FBI of parlay card gambling, illegal gambling on a college campus.
Okay.
That's how it was.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. So it wasn't, some nefarious scheme where everybody got rich because it was rigged.
No, they were not rigging it. You had a parlay card. You kept a copy of your picks. Your picks covered. And you got 8. It was horrible odds, just like all parlays. That's another thing, by the way, today. DraftKings and all these groups now are making so much money because the most popular bet that people take are the parlays. And even, in the pregame show, Steve, they're talking, you guys do your picks. I don't think you do parlay bets.
No.
But what they're doing now is giving you 4-team parlays or 4 event parlays. Right. That's the popular thing.
I have enough problems winning just one matchup.
Tell me about it.
Like, I'm not like, I'm going to get lightning in a bottle and get 4 in a row. No. That's not happening to me.
No. It's
so
brutal.
I don't do it.
No. It's brutal. That's gambling at Michigan. We had another scheme with Oregon where a player was approached about throwing the game in the 60s. We've had other little instances, but it hasn't been horrible here at Michigan. Thankfully for that. A guy I heard from this weekend, Steve, was our man Timmy. Was he having a good time? Yes. Did he have a smile on his face? Yes. Why? Because he runs an epic business. He runs MaverickTechnologyPartners.com with wonderful people, with fascinating services. He's making changes in people's lives and their businesses. He's got awesome customer service and builds beautiful relationships, as you got to know by hanging out with Timmy during the last week, Steve, at Oscars. He's a wonderful dude. You got to check out Maverick Technology Partners, project managers, CIO search, managed services. Maybe you're thinking about buying some new piece of software. You're not sure what to do with it. Call Tim. You can find him at MaverickTechnologyPartners.com.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it much. All right, Big Ten. Gophers got their doors blown off by the Iowa Hawkeyes.
They sure did. I don't buy PJ Fleck, Steve. What's going on?
The week after they destroyed Nebraska.
Yeah, the week after. So explain this to me. What's Iowa doing? What are the Gophers doing? By the way, Miz on the Sunday morning show called the trophy the Pride of Floydsdale multiple times. And if he made that up and that was the joke, it's still funny. If he actually thinks it's the Pride of Floydsdale, the trophy, that's amazing. It's funny for many reasons. He said it multiple times, though, Steve. The pride of Floydsdale. There you
pride
go.
of Floydsdale.
So that's what they're taking home.
It's Pride Day at Kinnick Stadium. Iowa does what Iowa does. They get a defensive touchdown. They get a special teams touchdown again. There's a reason why, like, the special teams player of the year in the Big Ten is known as Tim Dwight Trophy or something like that. You could also probably name it after this guy who's currently playing for Iowa right now too, Connor Weegan, and the guy before him, my relative, Cooper DeJean.
Yeah,
right.
Cooper DeJean.
My relative, I can't remember his name, Cooper DeJean. And those three guys, they are like the return guys at Iowa. In fact, LeVar Woods, who is the special teams coach at Iowa, he's like around our age. He should just be the head coach in waiting.
He's fantastic, man. They do a wonderful job. And those, when you have those guys, it's just fun to watch those games. It's exciting.
He's a former Iowa player. Special teams have never been bad at Iowa. And he might as well just be the next head coach and just hire some good position coaches, have an offense, have a defense, let that work out.
Maybe we could use them here at Michigan. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
Could right now.
We didn't give Dominic Zavada credit for making all his kicks, which he did. So
one.
I thought he made 2 field goals, but he made his extra points. Did he make just one field goal? One in the first quarter-ish. I thought he made one later in the game. I could be wrong.
Score was 31-20.
Okay, there you go. One field goal. 4 extra points. Well done.
Good job on
Took me a
kicks.
while.
Yeah.
You're going to live with me now, Chunk. Okay.
They're not,
all right.
Just Iowa is not, their offense is not equally as awful as Minnesota's defense. So, hey, Iowa's kind of moving up a little bit in the world. It's kind of tough to figure out where they're at. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Next game, Washington 42-25 over Illinois. You talk about Michigan responding to losing to USC and then beating Washington. How about Washington losing to Michigan and then responding by beating the Illini? Their quarterback, Damon Williams, who I'm high on, had 3 picks last week. He got strip sacked, had a quarterback rating of 98, and the team was held to 7 points against the Wolverines in Ann Arbor last week. Most people, that's the only time they've ever seen Damon Williams play. Yesterday, on Saturday, was what you usually see from Damon Williams. 42 points. Williams with 4 touchdown passes, no picks, and a rating of 190 against a ranked team.
Yeah, I think they're in that little zone with us. We should talk about where Michigan stacks up. Someone we don't stack up with, thankfully, is Wisconsin. They finally scored a point. They broke a streak. Luke Fickell's one of those names. Is he going to survive? Is he going to watch Steve? Do you need to check right now to see if he still has a job?
I will do that while you talk about it for a moment.
But Pun, you've mentioned he's got a big buyout. B, and they cited this on the broadcast, something you've brought up. He hasn't had a quarterback. He hasn't had the right quarterback the whole time. There's been injuries. There's been other stuff. And he clearly proved himself when he was, at Cincinnati before he came. I don't think you can fire Luke Fickell. If they did, State would be really dumb not to make another push. I say another push because they already made a push for him. They didn't get him to get him in Michigan State. All right.
As of right now, no coaches have been fired in college football. It'll be like the first time in several weeks. But bringing it back to Michigan, where are they in this Big Ten hierarchy right now? So Michigan beats Washington thoroughly. Washington beats Illinois thoroughly. Illinois beats USC by a hair, and USC beats Michigan thoroughly. All these games and matchups were at home for the victors. Iowa's in this group. They have only 1 conference loss. They gave Indiana its closest call, but they haven't played the other 4 teams I just mentioned and lost to Iowa State and have a game coming up with Oregon soon.
Look, I got to throw out all the transitive stuff, the transitive properties that you just throw in there. The reality check is we're high-middle conference team. We might have those 3 weeks to get ready and change it. We're just not a great conference team right now. That's my problem, Steve.
There's a tier 1 that looks like it's Indiana and Ohio State. Oregon might be 1B, or they might be 2 by themselves. And then you've got this cluster of Iowa, Michigan, Illinois, Washington, USC, and then down below that, Nebraska, Minnesota, I guess.
Just people are just seem to be hanging on this. It's like it's a Boy Scout badge of we made the playoff. Like,
well,
we're not going to win the playoff.
But
we're not winning the playoff.
Sure.
Can we agree? I mean, can we have real talk
now?
So
the expansion of the playoff might be, why do you get bent out of shape about making the playoff under a 2014 playoff when it probably doesn't matter anyway? But if you're getting 4 automatic qualifiers, how are you going to determine that by not having a playoff within a playoff?
Right.
I mean, how can you have Washington, USC, UCLA, not UCLA, but Washington, Illinois, USC, and Michigan, and try to figure out who team 4 is?
Okay, but Tony Petitti would have a playoff for that playoff.
You would have a playoff of a playoff.
Yes, and so the number 7 team would be on the outside looking in, or maybe there's more if we have 4 automatic bids. Maybe there are 8 teams in that with the top 2 playing. Who knows? But I don't think we're way off of what we expected, though. We still have that, which is always the bar. Are we going into that Ohio State game with a chance to do great things? And if we can win these games, we should be favored at Maryland, I would assume, Steve.
Should be
favored to have that opportunity. They got to get it done. I wonder if it's going to happen. I am a little worried about the Northwestern game. I am worried about the Maryland game. I think we'll take care of Purdue and have the break. We got to get better. Okay, but we're not winning the playoff. Let's agree.
Let's look at all the teams that will take all the at-large berths in the college football playoff, and that seems to be the SEC, where most of our national roundup does come from this conference. They're playing a lot of ranked teams playing together. They're usually coming down to the wire. They're probably having a tough time trying to figure out who their 4th, 5th, and 6th best teams are. But Vanderbilt outlasting Missouri in this one. The Commodores are now 7-1, their best start since 1941. They have 2 road games at Texas and Tennessee. I think they can win those games on the road, but you never know. If they do, I think they're in the playoff. Missouri's a 2-loss team now, with Texas A&M coming to their place, and they might have to do it without their starting quarterback, Bo Pribula, who dislocated his ankle.
Did you see the last play of that game?
I did not.
Hail Mary thrown down.
Yeah.
Looked like it hit the ground on multiple angles. Looked like it hit the ground for sure. I'm wondering, what are they looking at? No, he actually caught the ball, but he caught it on the half-yard line. He went down. The ball never broke the plane before he was down. I think it would have tied unless they went for 2.
Sure.
Yeah, it was wild. But I watched that when I watched Bama and South Carolina. Man, South Carolina was gutty, and I thought they were going to get it done.
Yeah, well, and the Southern highlight in this is that Mike Shula is coaching at South Carolina, not as the head coach, but as a coordinator. And Mike Shula was the guy before Nick Saban. Mike Shula may have been the worst coach in Alabama's last 100 years. And he had the opportunity to say F you or the middle finger to everybody at Alabama and their fan base by guiding this win. But Carolina led late in the 4th. They gave up the game tire, touchdown, needed the 2-point conversion, gave that up. Then they're thinking OT is the worst-case scenario, except Lenora Sellers fumbles on the 3rd down while short of the marker. Bama scores a touchdown in the final minute where I'm convinced Carolina let him score so that Carolina has a chance to at least tie it.
Yeah, it looked like that. And before all that, it looked like almost like everything was going their way. Did you see the punt? It bounced off of former Michigan DB Keon Sabb, who was playing for Alabama. The ball bounced off him twice. Carolina jumped on it.
Heard that on the way home. I did not know it was on Sabb.
Yeah, it just looked like everything was going their way. Did you catch any of Texas? A stunning comeback against Mississippi State. They were down 17. They scored. They stopped them. They got a punt return. Maybe the worst punt coverage I have seen in a long time, from letting the guy loose on the boundary through horrible pursuit angles, brutal. They get to OT. Manning goes out in IT. Some other dude, I don't know his name, maybe you do, pundit, throws a beautiful touchdown pass to win it. Crazy stuff for Texas.
And so now Texas has won their last 2 games in overtime against winless teams in the SEC. But let's applaud them.
Yeah.
for being right in playoff contention.
That's right. Uh-oh. See,
come on.
Steve's narrative about the crappy expanded playoff is coming true.
But the SEC making, bolstering teams that have done nothing.
They looked so dominant over us last year. I just assumed that would translate. And it's funny because Manning was everyone's projected number one pick. You had Drew Aller.
Correct.
Who else am I missing? These quarterbacks that were projected as these top picks have not had great seasons.
Gabe Klubnik.
Yeah. So
Nussmeier out of LSU.
Nussmeier was benched, I believe.
So nobody is remembering that you have 9 months of preseason talking about 3 of the 4 best quarterbacks in the nation, and what part of the top 10 will they be in the NFL draft? And about 6 weeks into the season, your top 2 quarterbacks going to the NFL draft are out of the Big Ten. Indiana's quarterback, Fernando Mendoza, who most people didn't even know his name or where he came from when the season started.
Yeah.
And Dante Moore, which at least people in Michigan recognize because he's from here.
Yeah.
But these are the 2 guys who are being talked about as going in the first round. By the end of the season, there'll probably be 2 other guys.
You know who's not being talked about? Coach Prime. Is he still coaching, Steve? You couldn't shake a dead cat without hearing about Coach Prime for the longest time. They got rolled at Utah. What a mess. What's next for Coach Prime?
Well, Coach Prime is just trying to get healthy. He's got a lot of health issues right now. I feel bad about that, but he lost his star players. I mean, you knew last year that it was his son and Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
And those 2 guys made up the team more than any 2 guys I've seen making up a team in college football in 2024. They left and they get rolled.
Yeah, they are really bad. Utah just embarrassed them out in Salt Lake City. So Coach Prime, feeling for you. I don't want him to have health issues either. But all the love affair with Coach Prime in Colorado was getting a little old, and he's completely off the headlines. I don't think game day will be going to Boulder anytime soon.
No appearances by The Rock?
No, I don't think so. So, Steve, we got, is it a night game with Purdue?
It is a night game with Purdue, but it is a 7 o'clock kick. So it's a half hour earlier than traditional night games at Michigan.
Thank goodness. The 45 minutes matter when they, you're hoping, I would have preferred even the state game start at 7. To me, it matters. Oh, the Mud Bowl is this weekend, Steve. The 92nd annual SAE Mud Bowl.
It's going to be cold.
Sometime in the morning. I don't know if it's been exactly scheduled yet. Benefits Mott Children's Hospital and the Woodson Fund. So I may see you out there in the morning at the Mud Bowl.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. The Mud Bowl. And, of course, this is a day where everybody gets an hour. They don't lose an hour. They gain an hour.
Is that right?
I think it's this coming weekend.
Okay, we're going back to
Halloween.
standard time this weekend.
Yeah,
so
set your clocks on that. Greg, we did it. What fun show to do, talking about Michigan and Michigan State. It's more fun than actually watching the game itself.
It is more fun. We got real. We're telling you the warts and all. That's what we're going to do. We're going to tell you what's on our mind. All in all, though, Steve, just so happy that Paul Bunyan is safe and back in Schembechler Hall, because just above all, I didn't want to hear it for the next 365 days. So we got that for us. Go Blue, man.
Go Blue.